I've got completely sucked into the fascinating subject of glaze chemistry. So I'm making a series of glaze tiles to test a new set of glazes. Glaze tiles are basically made from a tall cylinder with an internal and external base, which I've thrown on a number of bats, made 3 different cylinders so I can get lots of test tiles. Got another video coming on how I made the green bats, but using the largest one here, started with about 1.4 kilos of clay, and probably in hindsight I would have done that with a larger amount, probably would have gone to about 1.7, 1.8, because it was just a bit challenging to both create the donut and to pull up the walls with quite such a small amount. So after centering, pushed down and created a well in order to then pull out wide. But here I'm going all the way down to the bat so that it's clean against the bat, and I can then pull out to create this wide donut. Again, one of the challenges I found in doing this was particularly about keeping it centered all the way. So again, a bit of hindsight, probably would have put my hands as I've got here a bit tighter and held that center with more effort. But pulling it out all the way until I get to the point where I feel like I've created the diameter of the inner ring, and that's all the way down to the bat. And then I start pulling again at a higher level, leaving about 1/2 centimetre or about 1/4 of an inch on the of clay on the bat on the inside to create that internal foot. Just a bit of centering again, just to try and make sure that I take a bit of that wobble out before I start creating the external foot. So pushing it again down to the bat and creating about a 5mm or 1/4 inch foot on the outside here, which then can stabilize the little test tiles. Then we get on to a couple of pulls. My intention here was to create something that's about 10-12 centimeters, which succeeded in achieving in a couple of pulls. And again, with a little bit of more extra clay, it would have been somewhat easier to do it, but still fairly good success there. And then finishing off by just tightening up the top of the rim and finishing it off with a rib to have a nice firm vertical for those tiles. Bit of a wobble, not too much of a problem, as we're going to cut it afterwards. Measured to the 10 or 12 centimeters, little finished off, and there we go. That's what we're looking for in terms of the base cylinder. Off to drying. Left it for a couple of days. Pretty cold in the studio in winter time, so took a couple of days to dry out enough to be able to trim. And again, it was a bit of a hurry, so I probably should have left it another little while to get to full leather hard. And actually, I'll do another video on this in the future on what I've learned about what is the right level of leather hard. The great thing about being on a bat with bat pins is it can go straight back on the wheel, back onto those bat pins, accurately centered, and then a little bit of trimming. Frankly, don't really need to trim if you're just doing test tiles, but as I'm probably going to keep these for at least a couple of years or maybe more, it felt like it was worth the effort to create some pretty neat test tiles. So all neatened up and then ready to take off the wheel and prepare for cutting up. There we go, clean cylinder, and did give it a little bit of a nudge when I took it off the wheel, so it wasn't quite round, but less of an issue when you're cutting test tiles. So pulled off the wired off the bat, not too difficult as it's quite narrow to the at the point it's reaching the bat, and then you're in a position to cut the test tiles out of the cylinder. All free and released. So cutting, I used a simple spatula. First attempt on the first one, I did it dry, and although it cut neatly, it just got a little sticky in trying to get the tiles off the spatula. So I then, with the second one, moved to a wetted spatula, and here we go, found that just a little bit of water on the spatula just glide through the clay really easily, and then separated it really easily to create each of the tiles. So very quickly could run through the slotting up of all of those test tiles. In total, did 3 of these cylinders, and out of each one got 20 to 25. So ended up with, I think it was 72 out of 3, which giving plenty of opportunity for testing of the tiles. Cleaned it up. Again, not particularly necessary, but as I'm keeping these for a long time, thought it was worth preparing them neatly, straightening them up, so that there was no bare edges that could catch you or could affect the glaze when it went onto the tiles later. So got all of those tiles cut up, cleaned up, and here we are. We've got, as I say, I think it was 72 tiles on that board. Now it remains to just mark up the numbers. Now I found that with a pencil it was the easiest thing. Could have used the potter's needle, but that would have gouged into it. Tried it and it just gouged in a little bit. So went through just with a simple sharpened pencil. And here we go. We've got a full set of test tiles that, once dry and bisque fired, are going to be perfect for testing lots and lots of glazes. And that'll be a subject for a future video.